nyika inovakwa igotongwa nevene vayo. The stage is almost set. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has announced that elections are likely to be held in August. And he also announced that he'll be proclaiming the elections at the end of this month. Now, Zanu PF has been on the road running primary elections, but critically accused by opposition for trying to steal the election. Now, on this, the FreeTalk, in partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, we are going to be discussing the stolen election. Here on this, the FreeTalk, with me, your host, Dara Blessed Mhlang. Join me after this break. Welcome to this, the FreeTalk, in partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. I'm your host as usual, Dara. Now, we are at the home of the ruling party. This is their citadel of power. And we will be speaking in conversation with Tafadzwa Mgwadi, the Director for Information for the ruling Zanu PF, answering the critical questions. And is this a stolen election? Welcome and thank you very much for joining me, Director.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Blessed, your team. Welcome to the home of the People's Revolution, and of course, hello to your viewers and listeners.
Amazing, Director. Now just take us through, let's start with your primary elections. You just recently held the primary elections. There has been a lot of controversy around your primary elections. Can we talk about that?
There's no controversy at all, but of course, like any internal process, people are bound to have one or two grievances and complaints, and some genuine, of course, some others just frivolous anyway. But as you are aware now, the National Political Commissar, under the directive of the Politburo of the party, convened and presided over 5 reruns in 5 constituencies that I'm sure you're aware, and one of them was Kokweno Mzia, the other one was Jumba West. And the whole purpose in doing that, including Churu constituency, was to address genuine grievances that had been raised there. And I'm sure the result is there for everyone to see. The comrades who won were confirmed, and they are now on the ground campaigning for the parties and the presidency victory come the general elections. So there is no controversy around our primary elections, actually. You know very well that if you were to ask me, this was one of the most democratic internal processes of all the processes that Zanu PF has run in the past, in the sense that for the first time, we had a clearly defined voters' roll governed by our party cell registers. So we ensured that only registered Zanu PF members vote in the Zanu PF internal process, as it were. And the outcome was and remains clearly a Zanu PF outcome. And we are so happy about it. So there is no controversy. In fact, if you were to ask me where there is controversy, I'm sure your guess is as good as mine. Controversy is where so-called citizenocratic primary elections were held, and almost 1.5 months down the line, that process has not been able to produce a winner. It does not tell us who won. It doesn't tell even their supporters in themselves. They remain coy in terms of who was a product of that outcome, simply because it was shambolic and democratic, and one that amounts to occultic imposition of candidates in the opposition. All of it, including the CCC, so this is where there are people who are in 6s and 7s. In Zanu PF, we are clear. If you ask me who is the candidate for Arel Central, I'll tell you. If you ask me who is the candidate for the House of Assembly in Chiri, in Gutist, I'll tell you. In Buera West, yours truly. So I'll tell you. But if you were to ask some other person from some other political party, particularly in the opposition, who is their candidate, they cannot tell you in their face, because they even themselves don't know what they were doing.
But the results, especially in the constituency that you participated in, the results that you had won, the results that you had lost, and stuff like that. That's the controversy. What was happening?
Well, that was an internal process, but again, like you said, people are allowed to do what they wanted. I'm sure no one can authenticate or locate where that other paper signed from somewhere, which was saying somebody else had won, came from. No one can locate where it came from. No one can even tell whose signatures on that particular paper was. And of course, being fake as it was, doesn't even bear the number of spoiled ballots that were there. Also, what is very clear is that it was a non-issue, and that is why it was never raised anyway. The party never received any complaint about that or about my victory, and no candidates, inclusive of all those that I competed with, have raised any allegation against the winner or the winners, particularly when we refer to even the council, local authority, of course, primary elections that took place. So all that is what we read on social media. It is also what we read, of course, from those who are architects and fake news, as it were, but we don't take cognizance of that because we are not mindful of that. Our eyes remains on the ball. And most importantly, I must also tell you that all this controversy that you're talking about and all this news that so and so were that this and that, the party does not bear any records of any complaints of the comrades who participated in those processes. Where there were complaints, they were genuinely, openly and transparently addressed by the collective of leadership. So, as far as primary elections are concerned, I think the Politburo pronounced itself. The National Political Commissar also pronounced himself that the conduct had gone so well. Most democratic, transparent and open, people-driven process which produced an outcome. And the next stage where we are going now, if you were to ask me, is the manifesto launch. That is where our eyes are on. After that, it's now game on.
But you had a candidate disqualified for brewing illicit beer and later reversed. Why would a party as big as Zanu PF make such false accusations against its own, if they are indeed false?
Well, let me tell you, Blessed, what happens is that this was an internal process, as it were, and the party had clear guidelines governing the conduct and regulating the conduct of each and every individual who had thrown their head onto the ring to participate in these elections, isn't it? Those guidelines were very clear. The person seeking to contest in Zanu PF internal elections to represent the party at the House of Assembly, at senatorial, at local council election, leadership level, must have certain aptitudes and must also be a person or people of good social standing. So brewing illicit beer does not depict somebody as a person of a positive or good social standing, as it were. So with regards to that comrade in question, if you were following very properly, you won the internal process, but then when these allegations came, the Politburo was able to look at them frankly, and at face value, it appeared as if this was just a mudslinging from the candidate that had supposedly lost. But then, and that is when a temporary reversal was put forward, pending further investigations, and of course waiting for the law enforcement agents who were doing their work. The party felt that it did not need to jeopardize investigations that were ongoing, and then at a later stage, the comrade in question was finally disqualified. So he was not returned, he was actually disqualified. And as it stands, from the information we have as headquarters, the comrade in question was actually convicted of that criminal activity and is serving time in one of the correctional facilities. On that note, we don't see anything that was controversial about that process. If anything, it reflects the party and leadership's thoroughness in making sure that out of this process we produced and got out of them leaders of proper repute, high repute, that can represent the party and drive the agenda of President Emerson Mnangagwa and the Second Republic without any other negative isms around them.
There are allegations, Director Mbadi, that Zanu PF is looking to steal this election. Now, the allegation stems from one. Let's address them one by one, if we may. The issue around the delimitation, which appears to be opaque. Let's talk about that.
Well, let me tell you, Blessed, the history since 2000, that's 23 years ago, of this country is such that the formation of the MDC, which then has murdered all these other mushrooming opposition political parties, you name them. I don't think we have time during this conversation to name them all. But you know that the coming in of the MDC saw the genesis of heightened political contestation in the Republic. The first election in 2000 was contested. The opposition refused to accept the results of the parliamentary elections. They refused and went on to deny or to denounce the outcome of the 2002 presidential election. They went on to denounce the outcome of the 2005 parliamentary elections. They again went on to denounce the election results of the first round of elections of 2008 before a runoff was conducted. They again refused to accept the outcome of the 2013 elections.
Is it not stealing all those elections?
No, let me just give you this history. I think it will be very important to answering that question. In 2013, again, they refused to accept the election results, notwithstanding that the MDC then was now part of government and the elections were conducted under the inclusive government, where the MDC had also ministers in government and had their people under the Zimbabwe Election Commission, where commissioners were traded between political parties under the provisions of what was then the Global Political Agreement. I'm sure you're aware about it. Fast forward to 2018, again, Mr. Chamisa refused to accept election results. We are not therefore going to be surprised if they opine now that the elections in 2003 have already been stolen. It is because in doing so, they are clear, openly, publicly, acknowledging that Zanu PF is going to win these elections because they know exactly what the Second Republic stands for and what the Second Republic has delivered is actually second to none. We have stood to the promise that we gave to the people in 2018, Blessed. We talked about roads. The story of our roads does not tell a story that it used to tell long ago. It tells a different story. We talked about the resurrection of industries. The story of our industrial revolution is for all to see. We talked about agrarian reform. The story of food security in this country under President Mnangagwa does not need me to go miles overemphasizing. We talked about revamping our health sector. Yes, of course, we are still facing challenges, but if you look at our health sector in the context of the global challenge of COVID-19 and compare the death rates and the efforts that were put by our government to vaccinate our people under this regime of sanctions and other related challenges, you know very well that our situation tells a different story. So we have delivered the goods. We stood to the promise. And therefore, on that basis, we are going to win this election. Now, therefore, we expected the opposition to be talking in this language and this tone ahead of the elections. We are not surprised. They have done this before. They are ready to do it again, to say they have not lost elections. Elections have actually been rigged against them. We know this has always been their story because they have never accepted any election defeat. But yet, if I were to be given time to advise them, you go into an election to lose or to win. Normally there is no draw. Secondly, an election for the president, which happens as a separate ballot, does not produce a president and a half. It does not produce two presidents. It produces one. That means even if the president were to win by a small or a big margin, a victory is a victory because the election does not produce a president and a half. In 2018, it produced the President Emerson Mnangagwa. We are sure in Zanu PF that in 2023, it is going to produce again President Emerson Mnangagwa. And ask me why. It's because our mobilization is very scientific. It is methodical. It is detailed. We are very clear as a party when we are going out into the communities there. We are servant leaders. We have a statesman leading us. Those things are going to account for a victory blessing.
How do you say you are servant leaders that you are for the people when you've been accused of serious corruption? And members of your party have been accused of serious corruption. Just recently there was the gold mafia. Doesn't that make you shanda with shame?
Well, you use a very proper word and I like it. You are being accused of. Isn't it? That's what normally happens. If we are going to ask one of the teams now to say, Kwasi Noyega Jua 3-0 said, you'll hear people talking about the referees, you'll hear people talking about a penalty that was supposed to be given, but supposedly it was not given. Those are all sorts of accusations. Those accusations are not given to nobody. They are given to the person and a board, isn't it? That's what we are facing as Zanu PF. But this is not our first time to face it. Let me take you back. President Robert Mugabe, our former president in this ruling party, was always used to getting this kind of gibberish and childish insults and attacks from non-entities every time when we're moving towards elections. He has done this, he has done this, he's a human rights violator, so this is a despot, he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator, he's a killer, he's everything, he's a butcher. All those words were used against him. But he lays there in peace. He lies there in peace as our founding father and a statesman of repute. No one can dismiss that.
How do you say he's a statesman of repute? When you impeached him over the same allegations that you were defending him over these years.
Well, I think if you put things in their proper context.
Yes.
There were issues to do with usurpation of the powers of the presidents by the former first lady. So I think there is no need for further emphasis there. That was the sticking issue.
You said the
if you were
criminals around him?
me,
You said the criminals around him?
Yes, of course, around him, not him. No, that's why. And those criminals were also, in one way or the other, involved in this usurpation which I'm talking about. I'm sure the game that played out in 2017 is for all to say. And if you wanted to judge President Robert Mugabe and say he was all those kind of things, the other people who were accusing him of all sorts of those things, one of them is Mr. Nelson Chamisa. But you know what he says about Robert Mugabe today, and you know what he ended up saying about him even in death, that he was our father, he was our statesman, he did everything right. You get what I'm saying. So the other problem is that we have got hypocrites among politicians. That's why I'm saying those hypocrites are still with us. And this is why they have a penchant of calling us names. They have accused us of all sorts of things. But guess what? To the extent that you are aware, some of the opposition leaders have issues before the courts that borders on accusing people falsely or accusing the state about things that it has not done. At one point in time, the spokesperson of the opposition was saying the police killed a baby. You know that she was convicted of that. She's supposed to pay a fine, I'm sure. You know about the court case. And you know as a journalist, a baby didn't die. It was just an altercation between a driver and police officers, but there was no any harm caused to the baby. The baby did not die, but she had reported to the global news channels that the baby died. Again, they lied. that the state had killed Lavender Chimwa, an MDC councillor in Gurue there. It turned out of autopsy, that the person in question had died out of toxic substances. Those were very clear. So we are used to be accused of everything. The gold mafia you're talking about, of course. Let me be very honest to the listeners and your viewers, I don't want to lie. I've really watched over 5 minutes of that documentary because for me, that's another Charlie Chaplin film or a typical movie style. I don't have time for that. You look at the people involved in the mafia, we are talking about that. Those are people who are non-Zimbabweans, all of them. They are people of color. Most of them are, in fact, they are white people who are accusing black people of certain things. They have tried to bring the name of the president, Comrade Jim Nangagwa, into this whole useless saga. They have failed to do so. But what was their purpose? You ask me. We know their purpose was to try to besmirch the image of our presidential candidate, Comrade Jim Nangagwa. But thank God, they failed, even to their own admittance, they failed to do that. And that is why the paper that comes from the table you come from even went on to say, it appears as though these documentaries are making Mnangagwa much more popular to his supporters and Zanu PF members than he was before this documentary, isn't it? You ran a very good story about that. So let them produce another one. And then we continue to become much more popular. It's because we are clean. We are not, of course, a corrupt free republic. But our leadership has done all that it can to ensure that we extricate from our society this rampant corruption which we used to see there.
Is doing all that you can, Director, include appointing an ambassador at large who's caught on camera, clearly saying that he's prepared to launder money on behalf of these white people?
Well, I think he has opened his own reasons in terms of what he seeks to convince the public he was doing.
Do you believe
that's
that?
Not for me to substantiate. He's an employee, as it were, or an office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. I'm sure they've got mechanisms to deal with those things, and therefore it will be completely cutting before there was for me to subject the good ambassador, let me assume, a subject of this discussion. But honestly, like I said before, I don't have time to really watch that nonsense.
Director, opposition leaders have been arrested wantonly.
Yes.
Not
wantonly.
Jacob Ngarivumi, Tendai Biti, Fadzai Mahere, you name them. Is this the democracy that you talk about, that the Second Republic is bringing when you arrest people for airing their opinion?
Let me ask you, the manner in which you framed your question suggests that only opposition members have been arrested in this country. Now let me ask you a counter question. Is Priska Mfumira an opposition member? Is Obadiah Moy an opposition member? Is Justice Mewa Yajena an opposition member? All those other ruling party officials who have been arrested or been subjected to the courts for what they are alleged to have done against the law, members of the opposition? Completely not. So the starting point,
they've been given VIP treatment every time they are arrested, haven't they?
I don't know what kind of VIP treatment exists in a cell. I'm sure you've been in a cell yourself. And the last time I checked, you were in a cell at St. Mary's. I don't know what you saw as VIP at one of those cells. I'm sure you cannot substantiate that physically. But all that I'm saying is that what we should not do or refrain from doing is to characterize an arrest as a political arrest. Let us look at the individual and their relationship to the law. That is the key question. So if Ngwadi has issues before the law or with the law, let Ngwadi be treated as an individual before the law. Because at the end of the day, blessed, the cornerstone of our democracy, like in any democratic jurisdiction, it is the equality of the law. The law, equality of everyone before the law. All individuals are equal before the law. But it doesn't matter their standing in society.
But it doesn't.
So let us not look at people as politicians per se. Let us look at themselves as individuals and their relationship with the law and what they are alleged to have done against the law that warranted whatever action was taken against them.
But it doesn't look that way. It doesn't look that way. Does it?
I think it looks that way. Tell me how it looks like according to you.
Job Scholar was arrested for making utterances over the Nyatsime violence.
Can you go deeper with the utterances?
But before that, before Job Scholar made the alleged utterances, the Zanu PF chairperson was caught on camera inciting violence and actually saying a funeral will not take place under his watch because of opposition politics. Nothing happened to him until he passed on.
Which Zanu PF chairman is that? I don't know. I think I don't know what you're talking about. The only case rather that I've seen related to what Job Scholar was saying was the case of Abshai, with our chairperson in one of the branches there in Gogo, was supposedly raising a slogan saying Chamisa should die and so forth and so forth. And the party issued itself very clear about it, that it didn't tolerate or wish anyone dead. That was the starting point. The second, the thing that happened with
the police didn't act.
No, that's
the police didn't act.
That's why I said the second thing. I'm just characterizing what I thought you yourself must actually properly know if you followed it. The police summoned him. A warned and caution statement was recorded against him, and then he was returned home on condition that the crime was not committed, but he was, of course, reprimanded for the statements he had made. But that statement did not amount to any criminal offense being committed, isn't it? So, what is a crime? Or under what circumstances a clerk and a person be arrested? When they have or are about to, or when there is reasonable suspicion that they have committed a crime or they are about to commit a crime. In the question of Job Scholar, it's a situation, a crime had already been committed. The police were on their way to deal with the situation, to look for the suspect, the culprit, who turned out to be the culprit, in this case, Pius Jamba, who killed that lady in Nyatsime. And you know that Pius Jamba is in jail right now. His matter is still before the courts. 1 year down the line, he's still incarcerated. No one has demanded bail for him, isn't it? Are we in agreement? Because we believe that is a culprit, you and me. And if you were to ask me from this station, I'll tell you that that young man must face the full wrath of the law for the crime that he committed, isn't it? Now Job Scholar gets arrested for making those utterances, threatening violence, isn't it? Even saying, obstructing the course of justice by apportioning blame to people that he could not point to, saying it is a political matter, yet you now know very well that the matter of Mo Blessing Ali was completely apolitical. There was nothing political established out of it. That is why this culprit has been named and is inside, isn't it? It is that clear. So the crime had already been committed. Again, there was further crime that got committed after Job Scholar's utterances. People's houses in St. Mary's and Chigwanyika areas in Nyatsime were burned down, cars were assaulted, property was, stoned by those people. You have the videos. So let us look at these issues clearly. You also know that even video process.
There's also videos of violence before that retaliation.
No, let us.
That was committed by alleged Zanu PF members, and none of them has been arrested. Why?
What is essential is that I think I've done my part to characterize the situation that we're talking about. So I would not expect you to come defensively.
I'm asking you a question.
Tried to characterize this situation. A person even died inhaling bad gases and substances, trying to remove his children and property from a house that was stolen. And that person was a Zanu PF chairman, Muramba China. No one from the opposition has been arrested for his murder to the extent that you are aware, isn't it? Because it appears to me like it was mob violence. But those were things that happened after Job Scholar said what he said. So if you ask me, you would want to tell me that Job Scholar is needlessly in prison. Given all this characterization that I've given, I don't think we will be doing honesty to justice.
It doesn't he deserve a right to bail?
He deserves a right to bail like anyone where it is givenable. And let me say, the reason why I think the media is not doing a proper service to the people in terms of giving them a proper legal characterization of this matter. Remember, Job Scholar had issues before the courts again, isn't it? Of similar magnitude and nature.
But he was not convicted.
He was not, but there were issues before the courts, and some of them he was on bail for. So bail is a right that is not only, it is not a right that is natural, but it is given at the discretion of the courts. It is different from other rights because you don't exist with it. That is why pious jumper is no bail. But are you saying pious jumper is a right to bail in the same manner that you are saying Job Skull is a right to bail?
Doesn't he?
He doesn't have.
I said, doesn't he? Doesn't he have?
You
because bail is a right. Is it not?
Oh, no. That is why at law, that is a right that exists within proper parameters and circumstances.
The Constitution.
It is not natural.
No, the Constitution says that you are innocent until proven guilty. And therefore you have a right to bail unless there are certain circumstances that prohibit that right to be given.
Which circumstances actually exist, and for Job Skull for that matter. Like I said, he was on bail on these same matters. You know that he had been arrested prior on the allegations of trying to commit mobilizing violence. You remember that time when he actually fell from the ceiling? You know that kind of thing. Those issues were still before the courts to the extent that you are aware. He was on bail under certain conditions that he should not commit the similar offenses, isn't it? He went on to commit a criminal offense of a similar nature under similar circumstances. But
if you say
when he is on bail on the same thing on similar issues, so those are the conditions which you say the circumstances.
You are studying law, director.
Yeah.
He was given bail and had certain conditions.
Don't say certain conditions. One of the conditions was that within a certain period, under these bail conditions, you should not commit similar offenses of threatening violence.
But that bail that he was given with those conditions was never revoked. That means he never violated his bail conditions.
Look
right?
what happens.
Because if you are given bail on condition that you report to the police once every 2 weeks, and you fail to report once every 2 weeks, that bail is revoked.
Blessed, let me just take you through here.
Yes.
I said one of the conditions was actually that he should not commit criminal offenses of a similar nature.
Did he commit?
This is what was in question now, isn't it?
Yes.
The video and the utterances here talking about are actually far worse than the utterances he had made prior.
But if you say someone who has not been convicted committed an offense, aren't you jumping the gun?
Right. Blessed. Yes. This is what I'm saying. If you assault me today, you go to the court tomorrow, you get bailed $100 for bail, and then the condition is such that while besides reporting to the nearest police station and so forth and coming to court, you also are not supposed to commit a similar offense. Then after that bail, 3 days down the line, you assault another individual, and then you appear before the same court, and then you say you want to get bail, and then the court says you are not a proper candidate for bail because you have a penchant or a tendency of committing and repeating the same criminal offenses that you have been bailed before. But that amounts even, let me tell you,
as a student
disrespecting.
As a student of law, director, you would appreciate that a person who has not been convicted cannot be said to have committed a crime.
Right, let me ask you again. Let me
is that
assault situation I'm giving you.
Yes.
Now, if you have assaulted me and you got bail, and because you have not yet been convicted,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
Conviction is just sentencing. You have not yet been sentenced or convicted, isn't it? You have not been found guilty by the court.
Yes.
Then you go on to assault somebody, and then you expect to get bail because you are saying I've not been convicted of the first one. Then thirdly, you go and beat another person. The whole nation will then be in circles at the same court with you getting bail because you're thinking about bail that you are supposed to be convicted of the first offense, so that is substantiates any potential denial of bail on these other ones. That's not how the law of bail operates, my brother.
But you do agree with me that his bail was not revoked?
It was. You see what I'm saying, Blessing? Revocation of bail is when you have violated a bail condition.
Yes.
Isn't it?
And you are insinuating that this person violated because was given a condition of not doing.
Let me maybe probe you this way. Yeah. Am I lying that he was? And one of his bail conditions was that he should not incite public violence. Am I lying?
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
Yes.
You refer to the utterances in that video. Doesn't those utterances incite violence?
I'm not a court of law.
Okay, I'm saying your preliminary assessment of them.
I'm not a court of law.
Therefore, I'm not a court of law. Would rather leave these matters before the courts because we are not all courts of law. Doesn't that make sense?
Nelson Chamisa has attempted to go to conduct rallies in some of the rural areas, especially Mashingo, and we saw allegedly Zanu PF members blocking him, and we have videos that show.
On that one, blessed, let me tell you. You know,
does that all go well for a free and fair election?
Well, let me respond to you this way. I think what President Idem Nangagwa has been very categorical about this election, just like in the previous election, is that political parties must conduct themselves peacefully. And not only leaders must be seen to be peaceful, but their supporters must also be seen to behave peacefully. And they relate to other politicians within the confines of the law and peacefully. Tolerance, coexistence, we are a people together.
But
these demarcations that you are Triple C, you are Chamisa, you are so forth, these are just artificial nomenclatures. The natural name or natural nomenclature of all of us is that we are Zimbabweans. Therefore, no one should be stopped from engaging in their political activities in a free and democratic nation as us. And under President Mnangagwa, I've never seen that. But here is what we see sometimes.
We have audios and video recordings of people, senior party officials like Mr. Cheherenge, who has recorded Nishavani saying that people must not be given food if they are not voting for Zanu PF.
Well, to the extent that I don't have that audio or I'm not aware about it, I therefore cannot comment negatively about an individual. But let me assume that was said, it does not reflect the spirit of the Second Republic and the President. That is why, under the Second Republic of President Idem Nangagwa, the mantra is leaving no one and no place behind. And you can attest very well, blessed, that of course, aside of my knowledge that you have very positive and good relations with the President dating back to the time that I know you know very well that the attitude and the man in him, the statesman in him, would never tolerate those things happening. And you cannot suggest you are bringing a proper and good report for him to impress him by saying that I denied certain people from a political party access to a certain service or goods or food or whatever any government service. He will not smile at you. That you can agree with me on this interview.
Let us talk about the text messages that your party sent to potential voters.
Who said they belong to the party? Because I'm the director of information. I did not generate those messages. So I don't know where they were coming from and who was doing them. If there is any other department that was doing them, I'm sure it can properly substantiate. The Directorate of Information and Publicity is not responsible for that. If there is any other department that is responsible or any other individual outside there who is responsible or thought was doing the right thing, I'm sure if they are established properly, they can substantiate on that issue.
Whose role is it to campaign for President Emmerson Mnangagwa and candidates who have been elected by the party to represent it?
Every Zanu PF member is a political commissar when we are going to elections. That means a person from the cell to the president, isn't it? Is a commissar. And every person is a commissar. We mean every person, wherever they are, they must demonstrate a good leadership. They must represent the message of the president. For us, the president's message is an instruction. It is a directive. It is a direction post. It tells us exactly where we want to go. It is a signpost. So it is the duty of every member of Zanu PF to represent it.
So just getting back to that question. This message was to campaign for the president and for the particular candidate in a particular constituency for Zanu PF. And the only people who have this wealth of information of locating people's constituencies and their phone numbers and constituencies is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. If it is not Zanu PF who did it, are you suggesting that it is the ZEC which sent those messages?
I didn't suggest anything, and for your own information, assuming that anyone else like ZEC had that capacity to do that, will never request for such services from them, because our duty does not involve compromising a sacrosanct independent electoral commission. We don't deal with or relate with commissions that way as a ruling party. So I'm sure that's your own suggestion, but which of course is subject to them confirming or holding water with you providing relevant evidence about your suggestion. I don't think the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is within its constitutional obligations a duty to campaign for a political player. They have never done that before. I don't think there will be any pressure for them to do that now.
You've got the daughter of your vice president, of the party's vice president, sitting at the helm of ZEC.
You mean Chugumba is the daughter of the vice president of Zambia? She's at the helm of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm talking about commissioners. They are at the helm, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But the person in charge is the chairperson.
There's a commissioner who sits there, who is the daughter of the vice president of Zanu PF. You talk about independence.
Well, I don't think that her father is a member of Zanu PF and a senior leader, therefore disenfranchises her from pursuing a career, isn't it? Let me assume that myself as director of information now for the ruling party Zanu PF, are you suggesting that my child cannot become, let's say, an expert engineer at the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, or cannot provide technological solutions to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, assuming my child was capable, or could be one of the least very much capable to do that, simply because of her father is a director of information?
But you'd,
of course, on face value.
You'd agree with me that being a commissioner is not a professional career.
Well, but you're appointed because of certain aptitudes. A person cannot be appointed a commissioner from the streets. It can't be. Can you give an example? There are certain standards that they are supposed to meet, certain aptitudes and requirements that are expected of them.
One of them, which should be very critical one, impartiality.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm sure the lady demonstrated impartiality.
This is why you find that even when companies run, promotional, like challenges and stuff like that, those who work for them and their family members cannot win.
Now, what those companies don't tell you is that what do they regard as family members? Because you all know from the other order, but we still make a family, don't we? So I'm saying, in this case, the long and short of it is that if impartiality, as you say correctly, was one of the key requirements, I'm sure the lady Mohad demonstrated substantive impartiality, one that left no presence of actual bias towards what her father does. So therefore, she was in a proper way to deserve. Let us allow them to deserve.
Douglas Monzora has gone to the High Court to challenge the delimitation report. And in his allegations, he says that Zanu PF is preparing to run an unfair...
Zanu PF doesn't run elections. I don't know what has gone on to his head. What I know, of course, very sure is that he could be smoking something, but I don't know what it is. But certainly what we are now all aware for Douglas, that whatever that is taking, it is not good for him. For the record, the Zanu PF doesn't run elections. We don't run elections. That's the duty of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. He has been to one court, from court A to court B, court C. That's the person enjoying his rights. It's within his constitutionally guaranteed the right to approach the courts when he has got issues with fundamental national process, such as key ones like elections. But the manner he has been doing it, of course, sometimes leaves a lot to be desired in terms of whether it's a serious politician. I don't know how best I can say about it. I don't want to go detail with him, but I think I don't know how best to describe what he's doing, but you know very well that if you have an opposition like him, or an opposition like what we have entirely among them, and the shenanigans that takes much of their time, such as those, you know very well that you can properly say Zanu PF is alone in this election, and this is an election for Zanu PF to win or to win, because there are only two options for it: to win or to win. We can't lose to the jetsam and flotsam that is involved in all this nonsense day in, day out, while we are on the ground mobilizing. Yours truly is coming from a constituency now where we're mobilizing. mobilizing for the victory of the party, starting from the president, and somebody is still in an advocate's chamber, trying to lobby for certain things. All voices have bolted out, isn't it? A serious politician now should be focused on getting his apparatus and tools in proper place for the election, isn't it? Now what are they doing? They are busy assembling arguments. Honestly,
But do you think that their arguments don't hold water, given the fact that Zanu PF itself in Parliament, when the delimitation report came to Parliament, all your legislators were in agreement that that report was in shambles.
Okay.
So don't you think that is...
Aren't you lying? I don't think, so, and they were exercising their duties and the responsibilities as members of a sovereign House of Parliament, isn't it? The House of Parliament is another arm of government, isn't it? Of the three that makes government, that is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So we cannot sit here to penalize our members of Parliament then for what they were doing to exercise due diligence in subjecting that preliminary delimitation report to scrutiny. They did a fantastic job, and that is why, after they opined their views and recommendations, following a process of the rendition of people's views from their constituencies, which they went on to represent in Parliament, that draft was taken back to the President, who was the midwife between the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the Parliament. And the document was brought back to the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission with the recommendations from Parliament. Those recommendations were looked at. Those that made sense were represented very well under ZEC. The President also gave his fair share of recommendations about the delimitation report, isn't it? They are constitutionally empowered to do so. And ZEC looked at them. The delimitation report came back, a final one. It was ascended to. We now have it. So I don't know why all this is blessed, but what is clear from us, this building you are in today, the Zanu PF home of the People's Revolution, the headquarters, is preparing for elections. I'm sure the number of people that you have seen downstairs there, even as you elevated yourself up the stairs, was very small than the number that you usually see, because people are out there to campaign, to prepare for the elections, to win. That is what this machinery is all about. After winning, then we continue with the thrust of development.
Dr. Iboton Mandaza says that the military is a major player in this election, and the military is part and parcel of the Zanu PF campaign machinery.
What rank does he hold in the military now or then or before? Nothing, isn't it?
But the military,
so he should not appear to know the military better than the military knows itself. That's the problem with people who have sworn to be analysts throughout their lives. Sometimes they end up analyzing ribs of an ant, to analyze above the social. It's because sometimes there won't be anything to analyze anymore. Or sometimes their tools of analysis would have overtaken their conscience and they end up misanalyzing. We are used to that. The military is a major player when it comes to the defense and security of the republic, isn't it? That's a constitutionally provided duty, and no one can seek to take it away from it. Okay? But when it comes to the elections, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission constitutionally calls the shots. There cannot be two ways about that. So for anyone to then seek to involve the military or seek to involve the military on matters that it is not mandated to do, I don't think they are doing themselves any favor, or to whom they are analyzing. I don't think they are doing any favor to those people. But the
military is the one that gave birth to the Second Republic through a coup, is it not?
I thought even yourself, didn't you? You know the role that you play, both as an individual and as a media practitioner, isn't it? Not only yourself, the thousands of Zimbabweans who are marching, okay? And not only themselves, including the constitutional intervention of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. And that is why if you look at their point of entry, they're voting the verses and chapters governing this republic, the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe, isn't it? And it provides them that room for entrance where there was usurpation by unelected people from an elected president.
But just immediately
And
after,
that was the G4. You know that place, isn't it?
but just immediately after that coup, we saw
Not that coup, the president was impeached over, finally. And in fact, an impeachment process was set in motion, and
But
the former president did the right thing. He resigned. You have a copy of the resignation letter, don't you?
there are things that there's something that is called undue influence. Is there
Well, the former president is not here to suggest that he was subjected to that.
Exactly.
So let us not be
But
his spokesperson.
immediately after the coup, we saw army helicopters delivering ballot papers in Shawane, in Gokwe, in Zanu PF primary elections.
Not to the extent that I know, and here at the party headquarters, we've got our full machinery, our full
But in 2018, that happened. And
in
it's a
Zanu PF primary elections.
Yes.
No, to the extent that I was not yet here as Director of Information. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't think it happened because we don't have any records of that. You know that I'm the Director of Information and Publicity. Part of the duties of myself assuming this responsibility is to know any of those things if they ever happened, because it is expected that
or to
I
deny
will
them,
face them, isn't it?
or to deny them.
Of course, if they don't exist to the extent that I'm aware. And as far as I'm concerned, that would not have happened under President Emerson Mnangagwa. If it happened in 2018, why didn't it happen now where there are other areas that could not be even arrivable or visitable by vehicles? We had to devise mechanisms locally there to make sure that those areas were accessed due to mountains or roads that had been dilapidated by heavy rains. So we, at no point has Zanu PF involved the security apparatus of the state to run its internal elections. We don't.
Comrade Mugwandi, do you see Zimbabwe going to a peaceful, free and fair election?
I'm very happy with the peaceful environment that is existing now. I'm very happy with the peaceful environment that has been existing for the past 5 years, since 2018. I'm therefore very positive that we are going to have very peaceful, free and fair, credible elections, isn't it? We are going to have them like we have had them before. But this is what we're also very sure to have. That notwithstanding the credibility, the fairness, the freeness, the peacefulness, openness and transparency of the elections, there will still be pockets of people that do not accept defeat or do not accept election outcomes. That has already become part of their DNA. You know them, I don't need to mention them here. We expect them even to deny and reject the election outcome. They have already, as I'm speaking right now, President, started creating documentaries. They have already started writing strategies of denying election results. They have them, and already they have prepared the first press statement they are going to give after the election results. They already have it as I'm speaking right now. You will see it, and when it begins to happen, know that it will be choreographed, because they've already started working on it right now. That is why, blessing, they are having shambolic primary elections. That is why they failed to produce anything out of those primary elections, to the extent you are aware. That is again why they are not out in the communities there to agitate and galvanize their supporters as they often do, because they know that Zanu PF forces have bolted out and they are set for a victory. They know that President Emerson Mnangagwa is going to win this election. So what is left for them is to discredit it by any means necessary. You can be sure of seeing this that I have warned you about. Mark my words.
Nelson Chamisa, the president of the Triple C, says that this time around, it is Zanu PF that is going to go to court to challenge his victory.
If wishes were horses, then beggars would ride, isn't it? I'm sure.
If this is not going to be a rigged election, this is not going to be a rigged election, why are you so sure that you're going to win this poll?
Blessing. Why are we not here? I characterize the environment of this building. We are not seeing people that you often see and joke with as you come to this office or to our press conferences. Besides that, like I said before, which is most important, our victory in this election is going to be hinged on the stature of the statesman that we've been able to give to the people of Zimbabwe. That's President Mnangagwa. It is also going to be hinged, blessed, on what we have done. We have delivered the goods.
Which goods director? The local currency is crumbling right now.
That's why. Okay, go on. Let me listen. Then I'll answer.
Your civil servants who work for government run by the ruling party Zanu PF are suffering.
They are suffering.
Yes.
Zimbabweans
are leaving the country in droves to look for green pastures. What have you delivered there?
Oh, thank you very much. You know, blessed, there is no country that does not have its own problems, isn't it? As even they say in Shona, kuna mshaos na benz, or kuna mshaos na buwa, kuna mshaos na rinda, isn't it? If you translate what that means, it really implies that there is no country that does not have its own fair share of challenges, isn't it? But if you compare the Zimbabwe we have under the Second Republic of President Idi Mnangagwa and the Zimbabwe of yesterday, if you can't see a difference, then you can't even see a difference between your right eye and your left ear. That's exactly what it would be. It is because we have delivered the goods. When I'm saying the goods, I'm saying the wall of fame of President Idi Mnangagwa's achievements, what he has been able to deliver under these 5 years, the conditions existing completely are the goods that we have delivered, and they are for all to see. They are tangibles. We are no longer in that era where we will come here and start spinning propaganda to say we have done this and that. For one point in time, I'm sure you asked somebody here, have Zambia been able to provide employment? They said, oh, people are employing gardeners and maids and so forth. At exactly that point in time, you should have seen that indeed the birth of the Second Republic was imminent, because people could no longer touch what the ruling party was doing. But now under President Mnangagwa, look, we had the People's Manifesto in 2018, where we clearly outlined in black and white, what our government sought to deliver. We have laid the foundation under the Transitional Stabilization Program, now with an NDS-1, National Development Strategy 1, which is leading us towards Vision 2030. We are now consolidating the foundation we have laid, the foundation of infrastructure, the foundation of a sound agricultural system hinged on Fumvoza Intwasa program, where we have ensured food security. What was the last time that we had a bumper harvest in this country? Now we have produced the wheat under President Mnangagwa that can save this country for over 14 months without us producing anything. We have a surplus wheat of 14 months, but we never used to have that. We used to import wheat from Ukraine. All countries in Africa right now are in 6s and 7s because they don't have wheat. They used to import in Ukraine. Now there's Ukraine, Russia, a war. Zimbabwe has found a solution in this shortest space of time. Blessed, most importantly, this country, people expected that our people are going to die like cockroaches. There is a literature that says from Chinua Achebe, a young man sitting on a mountain top cannot see further than an elder man that is seated in the relaxed along a valley. That is what President Mnangagwa demonstrated to us in these 5 years. We had the scourge of COVID-19. No one gave us a chance to save our people. We were denied the access to COVID funds from who? From the IMF and the World Bank, the support that other countries were receiving from the Western countries. We were denied it. We got vaccines from China and Russia and India and other supporting countries in solidarity. We saved our people. Besides that, we had also, the number of people that died in Zimbabwe is not the number of people that those people like Kate Roy had expected to die in this country. They were saying Zimbabweans are going to die and no one will bury them. They will rot in the streets like cockroaches because of COVID-19, isn't it? Because they had done sufficient enough to decimate our health infrastructure. But we saved, and we saved because we've got a leader who leads with wisdom. We have delivered the goods under him. Our education system is now an education that is focused on producing solutions, providing solutions to our problems, rather than education. No, we are now giving education. Computer inogats will say that is what we have done under the Second Republic. Yes, challenges, as you say, we do have them. We know that the sanctions regime existing is targeting particularly our currency. But thanks a million times to our exchequer, the Minister of Finance and his team of George Guamatanga and the Reserve Bank government, the people manning the national cash box, with of course guidance they get from the president. They have done sufficiently well under these difficult conditions to keep our dollar ticking, and we are sure that we will take it to the election ticking, even as we continue to be under fire through the OFAC regime of sanctions.
Prices are mad. Prices have gone mad.
Not really mad. I think there are interventions that have been put by the Minister of Finance right now to release duties and other taxes related to importation of certain goods to ensure.
But you said we are self-sufficient.
Away. Well, blessed. When we say we are self-sufficient, for example, let me tell you what I mean. I talked about food security. I talked about verify engineering. When was in fact, we are now producing oxygen for export in this country, for both clinical and the oxygen for domestic use, isn't it? Those things we never used to have. Did we used to have those things? We had only bomb gases, everything.
Zisco still used to produce oxygen.
When did you,
and the management of the ruling party and government left it to close, didn't it?
I don't know about that, but let me assume we are being correct. Okay, when last did you heard about Zisco doing those things?
It's not
you
Zisco
don't know.
Rather, it's Sebo Chemicals
Yes.
that used to produce.
You
and
rather
it's
say
still
that.
there.
I actually were going to be worried, but now we have verified engineering doing just that, and even exporting and bringing foreign currency into this country, supplying oxygen, clinical oxygen to our hospitals and also for domestic.
But
you substitute from both.
You were saying as
gases.
if we never used to produce oxygen in this country.
No, but no, I'm saying, blessed. When last did you have Sebo Chemicals producing that? Let us not pretend as if we are not aware of our environment. Now we have it, but we had since lost count of those the availability of such facilities. Because of challenges.
You walk into another hospital right now looking for painkillers, you can't find them.
I don't think you are being correct.
Painkiller? Yes.
I think I would implore you, my brother, that
people
sometimes
people are being forced to buy what you call
sometimes
when they want to.
Where there are challenges, one good thing that President Mnangagwa has taught us, it is to communicate frankly and factual. Frankly and factual, meaning to say where we have challenges, we will acknowledge that indeed our health infrastructure has some challenges that are still existing. But so much has been done to raise them from the dust, isn't it? In the past, it used to be taking a person to a public hospital, the next day you think you should be expected to hear when they have died, isn't it? That's why
it's still happening, is it not?
No, I say the blessed. We still have challenges, I acknowledge. But to then say this country cannot provide a painkiller to its hospitals, I think we are needlessly over-exaggerating the degree of our problems in our health infrastructure. I acknowledge we have not yet reached where we want to be in terms of our health infrastructure. But the Second Republic has done so well, including with the opening and commissioning of an orthopedic pediatric hospital in Blawayo there for children for free. We had lost count of those things. We never believed that we still have that infrastructure, but we have been able to put it. A lot of clinics, blessed. Let me just give you as an example. I'm a candidate for House of Assembly for the ruling party. Now I've been able to familiarize myself with what is happening in constituencies there. A lot of hospitals, clinics and health points in rural areas have been put in place and erected by Zanu PF parliamentarians to ensure that people do not move long distances to go for bigger hospitals. Bigger hospitals in rural areas are now referral hospitals, but people now have health points closer home where those things like pain or other, health infrastructure for primary health care is all there. Now you would then want to tell me that if that infrastructure of primary health care is found in Buyera there, it can be found at Parenya or Harare Hospital.
Tafadzwa Chasakara died at Harare Hospital.
People die at hospitals
after giving birth, and they failed to do an operation on them because they did not have
painkillers.
They did not have anesthetics. They could not give a blood. They could not give a drip. All those things the family had been asked to buy, and they failed to buy that and she died.
Let me say,
this is the state.
I don't want to lie.
This is the state of our hospitals.
And the Second Republic is not a Second Republic of denialists. Under President Emerson Mnangagwa, the instruction is servant leadership and listening, isn't it? I've listened to the sad story you've just given me. If indeed it is true, may or his soul rest in peace, but indeed, I would not have expected that. But like I said, earlier on, our health infrastructure is not yet up really there where we would wish it to be, so that it provides first-class health services to our people. We would wish if we could do that, but also guess what, Blessing? This is where, when we say we do have sanctions in this country, then people start asking, which sanctions? This is so, this and so. But you know, let me tell you.
Why do these sanctions affect medicines alone?
Now let me tell you.
Zanu PF has managed to buy over 210 brand new
This is
vehicles.
where you don't make a distinction.
Ministers have land cruisers, but they can't buy medicine.
Now this is where your people make a problem. Let me just emphasize on the issue for sanctions, which I talked about, the health infrastructure. To the extent that you are aware that some of the drugs and medical infrastructure that we import in this country, where we are supposed to get it from producers and manufacturers directly to cut costs, we have got to rely on middlemen and third parties because of sanctions. We have got to procure certain fundamental services of our hospitals through third parties, because directly some countries and companies, manufacturers, where they are expected to be very cheaper, are not allowed to trade with us. You know that, and that is why there is that OFAC facility under the US sanctions, which is Office of Foreign Asset Control.
The last time I checked, India was a very good friend of ours.
Listen, let me explain. I don't think we should cut corners when we are talking about these things. We need to look at them very seriously to understand the challenges we are having. Now, if you say India, that's where drugs are cheap. Now, what happens, Blessed, is that where you are going to India because you don't have options anywhere else like others, things and pricing tends to be different for you because you don't have a choice. This is where I'm coming to. You know, the Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned the regime of the US, which is the reason why money sold for diamonds in this country was choked and withheld. You know about that. Banks facilitating trade for Zimbabwe were fined, isn't it? We used to have over 55 corresponding banks in this country. We now have, as I heard from Deputy Minister Chidua recently, less than 5 because of sanctions. So you know that all these challenges, Blessed, they have compounded us to say where we are going. We are going because we can't go where others are going, where things can be cheaper and proper. Therefore, sometimes we then have got to rely as a nation on middlemen or middle countries playing a worker for us or playing a retailer for us. And when the process lengthens, you know, in the command or chain of trade, the price regime changes at every level. These are the challenges we are having. It is the same challenge why oil is expensive here compared to other regions, isn't it? Because we can't purchase directly. So these are the things that we are raising to people to say, find the time to read about these measures.
Is it not because you are overtaxing people?
Blessed, all that I'm saying is they have time to read about this sanctions regime and be able to identify how those things have been choking the efforts of government. But be that as it may, like I said, the person was about Tafazwa, the person who had faced that predicament. It is a sorry state of affairs, as you said it, but also, again, even in terms of blood transfusion, because normally you are saying somebody wants blood. Blood is sold because the storage facilities and the company, I'm sure, that receives the blood donation runs quasi-private to keep it afloat and to be able to provide storage of that blood, because what is actually very expensive is not to get the blood but to store it, I'm told. So these are the facts that we should gather to understand that when the members of the public are then asking to buy this blood, it is because, if I were to ask you, when was the last time you donated blood? But somebody else did, and somebody is paying for the storage of that blood again. So maybe that small amount, or big as it is meant to ensure that those storing that blood continue to have facilities to store for it for future and further emergencies. But there are some situations indeed where members of the public may not be all in a position to afford for that service. I would wish if government could lessen the requirements for that to ensure that in emergencies like that, we save members of the public so that we don't hear sad stories like this.
Director, have you driven from Harare to Kariba, the state of the world?
Well, yes, I've driven with it twice. And the first time I was driving from Harare to Kariba, I actually bypassed the Kariba to go and see Marongora Road Rehabilitation a program that took place at a site where Magonya Tiger Rocket accident, Papa Chira, Singapore, Budika, and so forth. Go and see that place. You'll see that it was turned into. In fact, it was the Devil's Corner. It had been nicknamed the Devil's Corner because truckers had lots of accidents there, but now it was sorted with the assistance of JICA, that is Japanese International Cooperation Agency, and the government of Zimbabwe. It's now a better place. So I'm told, under the rehabilitation program of that particular road, this is where they started. And I'm sure progress is still coming along that road. But also, before you refer me to that road, also refer me to the road, the famous road that you know, Harare to Mashingo, you know it. Let's talk about it also. I'm not saying everything is perfect about the road, but the program that we have started of all the arterial roads in the Republic tell a serious republic, don't they? The story of our roads tell a serious president and a serious republic and a serious government that is ready to do much more. You look at this road from Harare to Bedbridge, isn't it? 1980, when we got independent, to 2017, how many years? 37 years. The First Republic could not address that. Under President Mnangagwa, in 5 years, we have dealt with that road. Not only dealt with it alone, we have also expanded the Bedbridge border post. You were going to Baba Tensen Wachiti, ndirutofunga kuti pandabva South Africa ndapinda South Africa ndikupinda USA nekuda kumana kiragata border nemagadziro warakai. We are doing so much blessed, but I don't know why so few people do not want to appreciate, even to say they have seen with their own eyes. They would want to pretend as if they have no sight. They have not seen anything good, nothing good. They are always prepared to criticize it. But also, again, sometimes positive, because in this criticism, positive criticism, where it comes, it builds us and opens our eyes on priorities, on issues where we need to focus more. And that's why the president is a listening one.
Some people have argued that Zanu PF wants power for power's sake. After attaining that power, does not know how to change the lives of the people.
Well, if we wanted power for power's sake, we could not have put our shoulder to the wheel to ensure that for the first time since 2000, we provide food security in this country. Just 5 days ago at the Rwenya Bridge, where the president was commissioning the Rwenya Bridge, they declared because we have got enough food in store to ensure that my areas who did not do well in terms of rains get that food.
But President Robert Mugabe always used to say that.
And then you get that from friends, isn't it? That was also what was good about President Mugabe again. You would say that and you would go on to get that food, that maize from Zambia, from South Africa, from other countries. President Mugabe is saying, because we have in our storage facilities and we are even ready to export more, isn't it?
Just immediately after winning the 2018 general election.
Okay.
Just immediately after winning the 2018 general elections. Immediately. There was already ED Fair 2023.
Of course.
Just immediately.
Yes.
And this is wanting power for power's sake.
No.
Because without even delivering, you already started to campaign.
But he went on to but now you are aware.
Keeping the country in an election mode.
But now you are aware that you went on to deliver. Because I'm sure maybe what he will give the president much more enthusiasm to deliver much more he has delivered thus far. It is because he saw lots and lots of confidence in his people, in him. The people expressed it. They could not hide it. And because they could not hide it in places, the president, I'm sure, has done much more so that it doesn't disappoint them.
We've run out of time, but I'll just give you an opportunity to speak to the people of Zimbabwe and tell them what they should expect as we go to the 2023 general elections and even beyond.
The general elections are coming, they are imminent. Never mind all these window dressing exercises being spearheaded by losing politicians or politicians of no virtue. The elections are coming. And because they are coming, the president, Comrade Mnangagwa, our torchbearer, the statesman that Zanu PF has given unto the people, our presidential candidate in this election, and the only presidential candidate worth voting for, has made it very clear that we want elections peaceful, we want elections free and fair, we want elections credible. Now, who are you to be organizing violence against others? Stop it. The party does not believe in violence. The president, our presidential candidate, Comrade Mnangagwa, and the entirety of leadership are very clear on peaceful elections. Let us work together. We are one people, one nation, under one leadership. Notwithstanding the nomenclatures of saying this one from opposition, from the ruling party, from which and so forth. Do. At the end of the day, we are a united people of Zimbabwe. And all this we are looking for is the better good of our people. And the only person who can deliver and has demonstrated that, and has the experience, and has given you the highlights of what is capable of doing, given a second term to continue, is President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And that is why us from Zanu PF are not hesitant to say, Comrade President, one good term deserves another. We are going to vote you once more.
Thank you very much, Director. I was in conversation with the Zanu PF Director for Information, Tafadzo Mgwadi, who is looking to leave the job very soon.
You want me to leave? I thought I was staying.
He is looking to get into Parliament. He won the Zanu PF primary elections, and he will be a candidate in these coming elections. Now, this is the Free Talk with me, your host, as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. Now, the issue is Zimbabwe needs a free, fair, and credible election. And this is a key to international re-engagement in platforms. The key to have credible, uncontested electoral results. Determine the fortunes of many in our nation. Now, all as Zimbabweans, we need to play our part. We need to vote in peace. We need to vote in love. We need to put our country first before people. And this is the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, and me, your host, Dara Blessed Mhlanga, on Heart and Soul TV and Radio. Thank you for choosing us as your station of choice. Thank you, Director.
Well done.
Thank you, Director.